pandemic and all this scare going around, do you find that people are less likely to be spiritually inclined at this point? What is your experience?
That's a great question. From my experience, interestingly enough, since we've started doing Zoom services with my synagogue for Shabbat, for the Jewish Sabbath, we are actually getting more people coming to our service than when we do a normal Friday night Shabbat service in person. I found that really interesting. I think perhaps there's two reasons for that. First, I have some elderly congregants who really don't like driving at night. And even when I offer them a ride, they don't like being out at night, especially this time of year. So they're able to connect at home, which I really appreciate. And I think this is a time where so many people are looking for something beyond themselves that's positive, that's inspirational, that's community oriented. And Zoom services with my colleagues, we're all finding that we're having more people connect with us than in a traditional come to synagogue or church type service.
Do you think this might even be an alternative for once we're quote unquote in our new normal?
Right. I don't want to say alternative. I would like to say addition, because I look forward to going back and seeing my congregants and friends face to face. There's nothing that is a substitute for that, even these Zoom services. But what we've spoken about is having Zoom or Facebook Live, whatever medium we choose to use, as an addition to what we offer face to face. So I think that this pandemic experience will really help us recalibrate what is best for moving forward.
Thank you. In this period of time also, Jewish people, of course, celebrating Passover, and Christians just celebrated Easter. Do you really think that there's connected, that we really are connected? I mean, after all, some of us can't get the ingredients for the seders. We can't get the wine or the apples or perhaps even the matzah. Are we kind of really celebrating the seder? Are we really connecting?
I think we are, more than ever. I think this is a time to use our creativity. I wasn't sure if I would have some of the ritual items, and I was thinking about what I would use as a substitute when a friend called and to see how they could support me. And I thought they were thinking about if they could listen to some of the difficulties serving in a hospital as a clinical chaplain during this time. But really what I needed were some ritual objects for my Seder plate, and they were able to get them for me. But we did have to be creative with a couple of things, and I think it makes us stretch and appreciate the ritual even more. I feel badly for people who are not able to get matzah. I know I've provided it to some patients in the hospitals. But I think often less is more. Sometimes we don't realize how blessed and grateful we are with the abundance that so many of us have. Sadly, not all of us, but from middle class up, the abundance we have living in our country. And it's, for me, been a time of reflection when I watch the news and see the long lines of cars for people who don't have enough food to eat and need to sit for hours in line. It makes me appreciate what I have and not care if I can't get a certain ingredient and make what I want to make. I mean, we have more than enough food. It doesn't matter if it's the food we exactly want or not. So it's given me and I believe many others a really healthy perspective during this potentially very unhealthy time, a healthy spiritual perspective when physically so many people are dealing with health issues related to COVID-19.
You had also mentioned that you do go into the hospitals, of course, being a cleric chaplain. What is your experience when you go in the hospital and visit the patients? How do you give them hope, and how can we give them hope?
Well, I think the question, because most people aren't visiting patients in hospitals right now, there's a select few of us that are. So I think the question really to be asked is, how do we give each other hope? How do we give ourselves hope during a time like this? And I think the answer to that is very individualistic. You know, what fuels me might be different than what fuels you. So I need to look in the places where I can draw my strength and inspiration. I draw that from my tradition. I draw that from nature, even looking at pictures of nature when I can't be in these beautiful places. My daughter and I were blessed to travel to South America in the middle of December before this broke out. And often I'll find myself looking back on those pictures and feeling myself there and re-energized. I've done some Zoom conferences with two close childhood friends. We're all in different states. We're in different time zones, and it's really nice to come together. And I think we would not have taken the time to do that if it wasn't for what was going on. So for me, checking in with people from around the world, also friends that maybe I just check in with once every couple of years that I've been in closer contact with, that brings me refreshment and inspiration. And in turn, I store that so I can give back to the patients I see in the hospital, the families I deal with, my congregants. It's important for each of us to find our way to refuel during this time.
Wow, absolutely. And you had touched upon a couple of things that inspire you. Where have you gotten your main inspiration? What really just hit you so much at this period of time that just has propelled you forward?
The times that I've been at my lowest and felt like I couldn't go on in the hospital, either from physical or emotional exhaustion, I've reached out to two fellowette conservative female rabbis and clinical chaplains. Again, we're each in different states. We were supposed to room together for a chaplaincy convention in Cleveland in May. That, of course, isn't happening. So instead, we formed this group. And when I felt the lowest of my low, I've reached out to them, and they've been there for me, and they've reached to us as well. Feel like I've reached out to them more, but they've been so gracious about it. And luckily, the times that each of us have been struggling have been different times, so we've been able to support one another. I have different people that I reach out to for different types of support, and I'm making sure that I do that now, because those of us that support others really need to be supported ourselves. Something else that I could do at any time, even when I wake up at 3 a.m, which I do most days, luckily I go back to sleep, is I'm big into inspirational quotes. I brought some to share if we have time, and I get them from all sorts of places, and I can turn to one at any point. I keep some on my phone, so if I'm at the hospital and just feeling like I need a little extra oomph, I'll look there, and for me that's helpful. But again, that might not work for someone else. I love to read. I normally read at night. I've basically been too tired by the time I go to sleep. Sometimes I fall asleep before my head hits the pillow. So I haven't read as much as I'd like. I enjoy beading. I haven't done that in a very long time, but I look forward to doing that. I have a chapter due for a book that I'm a contributing author to. I haven't had a chance to do that, but it's due the end of the month, so that's going to get done. And I love writing. That's very inspiring for me. So those are some of the ways that that I help refuel myself.
And one of the things I noticed that you touched upon, two things we've got to hear your quotes. There's no question about that. The other thing that you touched upon is receiving. And I think it's kind of hard sometimes for people to reach out. Now you've reached out, you've gotten support. What would you tell your people about receiving at this time? Because sometimes it is kind of hard to say, gee whiz, I'm in a lousy spot.
For me personally, we flooded during Hurricane Harvey, and it came in very quickly, and I realized that a number of my friends had flooded multiple times. This was our first and hopefully only time, and it was devastating to us. But I realized at that point that we needed help. We needed a lot of help in so many ways, and it was hard to reach out. But once you go through the experience of receiving, and even people, offering support that you don't feel comfortable taking, but then being insistent and realizing, wow, this is helping you as much as it's helping them, because we all know, for those of us who enjoy giving, we get a great deal out of it as well. It's not just selfless. It makes us feel good. So having been on both sides, I understand the importance of both. And yes, sometimes it does bring you to an uncomfortable place to reach outside of your area of comfort, but that's how we grow. And I think the times that I've reached out to others or accepted others' offers when initially I may not have been comfortable has been a real growing experience for me, in addition to really appreciating and benefiting what our friends shared with us, and the manual labor and the finances, just everything, the groceries. You realize it makes you a more well-rounded person and easier to sit in someone else's position. Their circumstance may be very different from yours, but they're in need, and it makes you understand why they might be hesitant to accept the help you would like to give them. So all around, I think it's made me a much stronger person. Not to mention we have a brand new downstairs in our home, which is lovely.
I can imagine. That is great. Would you please share with us your inspirational quotes? I know that you sent them to me, but I'd love for you to read them. And I
have so many more since I sent you.
Well, there are so many. I mean, I really just, so many I clicked on with you.
Yeah. So let me share this one, because I think it relates to what we just spoke about. It's by Thomas Nagel. Each of our lives is a part of the lengthy process of the universe gradually waking up and becoming aware of itself.
Wow, I love it.
Let me share that one more time.
Would you say it again a little bit slower? I need to hear this too. That's what I was thinking.
Sure, with pleasure. Each of our lives is a part of the lengthy process of the universe gradually waking up and becoming aware of itself. So each of us is an integral part of the universe. And as we become more spiritually, emotionally, intellectually aware, we're contributing to the betterment of our universe. And if that isn't empowering, I don't know what is.
Absolutely. So what I'm sure that all of us are getting from that is that we have to take care of ourselves first and our own
Yes.
spirit, and then we will have more to give. And that's an amazing quote.
And what I also get out of it is sometimes it's painful to wake up. I look at my daughter now, who's taking all of her classes, mainly music classes, online. That was a huge adjustment. And she's working really hard. I mean, she always works hard, but her school is in Chicago, so I'm seeing firsthand how much she's working. And it's not easy for those of us who've been students. I was a student for many, many years, gaining knowledge and really integrating it into your being, not just memorizing it for a test or quiz and letting it go, but really having it become a part of who you are and using it to not only move yourself forward, but move others and situations forward. It can be painful. But when I look at this quote, it's a way of us waking up. It's not easy to wake up. Who wants to get out of bed when we're in our little cocoon? Maybe our kitties are snuggling next to us, a spouse, whatever, and who wants to get out of that space? It's much easier to stay there. But of course, we don't grow when we're stagnant, when we stay in one place. And I think what this experience is teaching us is we're growing. We don't understand the ways in which we're going to grow and move forward, but we will, and hopefully each of us and our universe will be a better place. I mean, at the same time, the number of deaths and people ill is just staggering. My heart goes out to everyone who is suffering, who has a family member that's suffering or that they've lost during this time.